Scrappers, recyclers, and investors, welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we're talking about the precious metals market, the industrial metals market, and things that go on and impact this wonderful world of scrap and recycling that we all enjoy. It is great to be here. We've had a really good week, a lot going on. And I'm really looking forward to having a fun hour talking gold and copper, and our safety topic for the week. Well, let's just say it's a good one, and it's seasonal. All right, so I want to say hello to folks that have come in already. Scrapping Irish, Richard Halbert, great to have you all here. Roger, see you scrapping. Roger, sorry you're not feeling 100%, but I'm glad you're on the backside of that cold, and hopefully you'll be right back in battery here real quick. Our friend from New Zealand just came out of surgery, so a couple days ago he's at home recouping. I don't know if he's going to join us today, so we may not have our friend from New Zealand in the house today. Electronic Scrapper, welcome, great to have you here. All right, well, let's get right to our subject for our precious metal subject for the week, gold. 4,097.98 US dollars per ounce. Here's the weekly chart for gold. Now, again, this week I'm not being sponsored with APMEX. So this week I will say I'm not sponsored by APMEX. I'm still trying to work this all out. It's a sponsorship through YouTube, and I'm got to get the details and the nuances correct. But we have not sponsored this particular broadcast with APMEX this week. So I'm not sponsored this week, and we get no remuneration. Like I said, I got to figure this one out. Anyway, I just like using APMEX. It's been a great place for me to buy and trade my physical gold and silver, and I always recommend that people have physical gold and silver. So what's going on here? We're looking at the 1 week. And we started out the week and gold prices were climbing. Let's make that a little bit thicker. So gold prices were climbing for the week. Then we have some churn going on, but generally pushing up higher. And then we're trucking along with a little bit of a climb here. And then we start dropping off here. And then we have this real drop right here near the end of the week. And now we're into the churn again. So what happened here at the end of the week that would have caused this price to drop like this? The U.S. government reopened. So, when the U.S. government was closed, there was a lot of uncertainty for investors. Data that they normally get wasn't coming in. I mean, just a lot of things that caused a lot of anxiety in the investment world. So prices were naturally climbing up. Well, the government's open again. So prices drop as an immediate reaction. Now, what's going to happen? There's still a lot of churn, a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty. So it'll probably climb back up again. But we had this little drop for right now. If we look at the 3 month, it takes out a lot of that churn signal, that variability in there. We can see that overall was up for the quarter, 21%. So if you just drew a straight line from the beginning of the quarter to the end of the quarter, and you can see we were below that straight line, above that straight line a little. But generally speaking, the slope, we had a couple of different slopes on this. Then we had this drop off with a little bucket going on here, and now this other drop off. So, there's some, this level of churn in here was to be expected given everything that was going on in the world and in the U.S. All right, so here's our 1 year chart, and we're going to zoom in on this much more with the trading economics chart here in a little bit. But overall, for the year, we're up 48.71%. Not bad at all. I mean, if you had bought gold a year ago, you'd be pretty happy right now. If you'd had bought it 2 or 3 years ago, you'd be even happier, wouldn't you? All right. Well, let's get over to the Trading Economics website and get a little more granularity in what's going on. Now, I'm not sponsored by Trading Economics either. In fact, I pay them. I've got a paid subscription, which gives me access to a bunch of features and allows me to do more of the research that I would normally do. So, no sponsorship with Trading Economics. It's just a really good place to get some great information. For instance, I always love their summary discussions. Gold prices paired earlier gains to fall below 4,100 per ounce on Friday, though the metal remained on track for a weekly advance of 3%. The market continued to grapple with uncertainty stemming from significant backlog of U.S. economic data following the end of the longest government shutdown in the country's history. Concerns have grown that several key releases, most notably October CPI and employment figures, may never be published if the agencies are unable to finalize reports due to disrupted data collection. And the geek shark in me hates data disruption. I mean, that just throws everything out the window. It makes it very, very difficult. And anyway, as a result, investors have scaled back expectations for the Federal Reserve easing this year, with money markets assigning roughly a 50-50 probability of a December rate cut. And despite the uncertainty, bullion remains supported by ongoing central bank purchases and steady demand from investors seeking protection against fiscal risk. So this has been a common theme for a while now, this notion of central bank purchases and investors seeking protection against risks. That's what we've been talking about every time we talk about gold and silver for the last several live streams. So let us go into the candlesticks, and here we see all these green candlesticks as it was climbing. Here's the red from the drop. Let's zoom in on that. We're going to zoom in on this period here. And so here we had this big drop, October 21st. And, you see a lot of selling off, investors taking profits off the table, some people trying to figure out what's going on. And then they're like, it's coming back up because we're not sure. I mean, this kind of churn now will go on. And for gold, these numbers, these seem like big numbers, right? We're going from 4104, we're down to 3932, and then we're back up to 4201. But for gold, those kind of numbers that's not huge variability for gold. So don't let those large swings spook you, because gold is such a large dollar value anyway. Those kind of swings, that happens with gold. And then we're going to go over here. We're going to get the line chart back up. We're going to look at the forecast. And pretty much like we've had before with the forecast. So draw your attention over here. We see this gray line showing our climb up again. And that's a nice line. That's a very comforting kind of slope for us to see. It's comforting because it's not so steep that you're going to rush to take advantage of this, that you're either going to rush to take advantage of this, or that you're going to be tempted to hold a lot of stuff thinking that there's some good peak going to happen real soon. And of course, it's not negative, which, we don't ever like to see that kind of line because, man, then you're going to sell in anticipation of that drop. So I like when we see a nice, somewhere between 20, 30, and 45 degree slope. We don't want to see a flat line either. I mean, that's better than a negative, but flat line can cause some angst too. So, when the slope is like this, but it's comfortable for us because we can, as scrappers and recyclers, we can say, all right, I've got time to process my material. I'm not worried that I have to sell right away. In fact, I have some comfort that when I'm ready to sell, whether it's a 30 to 50 pound box or a Gaylord full of it, or multiple pallets full of material, I'm comfortable that I'm going to get at least what I'm getting now, maybe more. It gives the people that buy our scrap, like boardsort.com, it gives them the comfort factor of we don't have to drop our prices. We're okay. We got to keep watching, of course, but they're not going to be tempted to drop their prices, even though there's some churn going on in the market, because they have some confidence that the price is going to continue to rise. So it's a very comforting signal. It's a good signal for us in the scrapping world, especially in the electronic scrapping world. Keep processing your boards, keep selling your material, if that's what you do, and don't get so concerned about that. Oh my God, I got to sell it right away, or I really ought to hold on to this in anticipation of some spike. Now, of course, if you have the room and you don't need the cash flow and you want to hold your gold bearing material because it is rising, then hey, by all means, go for it. But for those of us that are running small businesses, we got to pay the bills every month. So we need the cash flow, and this is good for our cash flow. All righty, I'm going to leave this chart up. I'm going to go over and look at the comments and see what folks have had to say about gold since I was on this one. Let's see. I also want to see who else has joined us while I've been talking. Mike's Meltdown is in the house. Mike, great to have you here. Merchant Metals has joined us. Welcome. Patrick Williams is with us. Patrick, always good to have you here. Who else has joined us? Anfield's in the house. Anfield always seems to be editing a video every time he joins someone's live stream. I've just noticed that. It's like Anfield must be constantly working on videos, because every time he joins someone's live stream, he pretty much says the same thing. So you must be one busy cookie. E-Waste Jill is in the house. Joe, great to have you here. And let's see, did anybody make any comments about gold here? Let's see, I'm looking for gold comments. Bunch of people just saying hello to each other as they're coming in, so that's cool. That's cool. All right, I don't see any gold comments, so that is fine. And I can tell you that I didn't sell any gold. I really don't have a lot of gold. I mean, the gold that I have is mostly just because I wanted the gold. Here, let me show you. I'm not going to show you the actual gold that I have, but if we go back over here to AppMex and we go over to gold and we go to gold coins, so I always wanted a gold eagle. So a few years back, I bought a gold eagle. They're just, to me, they're just pretty. They're just pretty. I mean, they look nice. It is currency, so it's the kind of thing that if I did want to sell it, I could take it to a pawn shop, a coin dealership. I could even sell it back to AppMex, and it would be a no drama type of thing, because it's recognized. I always wanted to have. Here, wait a minute. Let me go back here and go back to gold coins. I always wanted a maple leaf, so I bought myself a maple leaf at some point. Again, I find them to be an attractive coin. You got the queen on one side, the maple leaf, and the other gold coin that I always wanted to have, and so I eventually went out, got myself one. There we are, Britannia's. So I got myself a Britannia one time. Again, it was just, I wanted to have one. I just found them to be beautiful coins in their own right. and it was a coin that I knew that if I ever needed to sell it in the future, I could. Now I have some other gold too, but those are probably coins that I'll pass down, with no intention of selling them at any point. All right. Well, good conversation about, or good discussion on gold. Um, and let's see. Let's see. Richard is saying that his gold has been piling up for years. It's gaining in value. He just needs to get it out of the sand and the computers. And it's an interesting point. If you have gold bearing material, you technically have that gold. You still need to extract it if you want the pure gold, um, but you've got it right. It's taken up more space than it otherwise would, but you've got it, and then it's just a question of, do you go through the time and trouble to extract it at some point in the future, or do you sell it as it is? Let's see. Urban prospectors in the house. Howdy, y'all. Driving to work, but listening. Dropped 44 pounds of RAM at board sort the other day. Now it's time to restock. 44 pounds. Whoa. And what RAM is going like $43 a pound right now. So man, that was some good bucks there for you. Mike Meltdown is saying that the only gold that he has right now is his wedding ring and his college ring. Yep. Yeah, I got my Naval Academy ring is freaking huge. I never wore my Naval Academy ring after I mean, I wore it for a little while after I graduated, but I didn't. The term that a lot of Navy people recognize is ring knocker, and I didn't want to be a ring knocker. I didn't want people to that be the first thing that they associated with me. Plus, I was aboard ship a lot in my first 10 years. And a ring aboard ship is a dangerous thing to have one. So, again, I wasn't wearing it aboard ship. So, it's almost in pristine condition. And those Naval Academy class rings are freaking huge. So, there's some gold tucked away there. Oh, man. Okay, so it is time to get on to our safety discussion for today. And I decided that to go with ladder safety because we're putting up our Christmas decorations. And so I am up and down on ladders pretty much every day for the last week or two as we've been decorating. And I just, it's like, well, this will be a good subject. It's that time of year when people are probably going to be up and down on ladders a lot. So it's a good thing to talk about ladder safety. Now, while I was investigating ladder safety, I found a number of different um, sites that talk about ladder and ladder safety. Um, this one is pretty cool. This is from Labor Industry, Washington State Department of Labor and Industry. I think pretty much every state, as well as the federal government, has stuff on ladder safety. So it's important. You gotta pay attention to it. And there's a lot of different kinds of ladders that are out there. So it's not just the ladders that we're used to at home, the A-frame folding ladders or the extension ladders. In an industrial setting, of course, they have ladders that are permanently mounted to the side of the buildings. Aboard ship, we had ladders, going straight up and down, going at angles. And then you have the ladders that have the safety cages around them when you're going up high climbs. So I'm not going to talk about the industrial level ladders. If you are working in a place that has an industrial ladder, then uh, the you probably have had to take training, and you know what you need to do. This is for those of us in scrapping and in our sort of our home environments. But there is a nice ladder safety guide that's on this website, and this is good for both scrappers and your home situation. You've got a lot of good information here about how to about all kinds of ladder safety issues. Here's the various kinds of ladders that you have out there. The most common ladders that we'll use, of course, are the step ladder, which might be only a couple of rungs high, 3 feet, or it might be much larger, 8, 12, 14. You got the single ladder. You've got the twin front, which means you can go up on either side of it. The step ladder is not designed to go up on the back side of it, right? That's just for strength and support. So don't try to do that. You have an extension trestle. You have an extension. You've got I don't think any of us, well, some of you may have used one of these, an orchard ladder. I just thought that was interesting. I've never seen that before. And then you've got all these industrial mounted ladders here. One of the key things that we all think about, that when we use these ladders, it's like I've seen these videos of people that just go way too high on the ladder. So I just felt like this was probably a pretty good thing to talk about. So the first thing you want to do with your ladder is inspect it. Make sure it's still in working condition. Okay. If you use it a lot, you'll be looking at it every day. But you don't want to use a ladder that has been damaged, especially if you've got one of these rungs that's broken somewhere along the ladder, because you could forget that rung was broken. Plus, you won't be able to step over it safely. If it's a wooden ladder and it's cracked along one of the rails, well, then you've risked the integrity of that ladder to carry weight, so it's probably going to fail. Just inspect your ladder, make sure that it's still in good, safe working order. Make sure you use the right ladder for the job that you're going to do. One of the things that a lot of folks don't realize is that with an extension ladder, you want the top part of the ladder. Here, let me show you. You want this part of the ladder to be 3 feet above the surface that you're going to be landing on. The reason for that is because you don't want the edge of the house to be resting right on the top of the extension ladder, especially if you need to get up over it, because it can slip off. It's not a good purchase, and you have nothing to hold on to if you're climbing up onto the roof section. So if you have, and let's do this line and bring this up. So if your roof line is, say, right along here, and this is 3 or more feet, you can climb a bit further up, step onto the roof while you're still hanging onto the ladder to steady yourself. So at least 3 feet above the landing where you're going to climb up onto. Really important there. The other thing you want to make sure is that if you're going to be around electricity, that you're not using an aluminum ladder. Fiberglass ladders are preferred around electricity. They're heavier, they're a little bulkier, but they're not going to conduct electricity. So you're a bit safer when you're operating around electricity on a fiberglass ladder. Wooden ladder, okay, but the fiberglass ladder is the safest around electricity. You want to make sure that it's on a firm, level surface down here, not off at some angle or in the mud or those kind of things. There's various things you can do to stabilize the feet if you need to, and don't be afraid to use something to stabilize the feet as you're going up and down, especially if it's an extension ladder. Speaking of extension ladders, you want to follow the 1-to-4 or the 4-to-1 rule. So what that means is that for every 4 feet of vertical height, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4, you want 1 foot of horizontal distance. And that's to ensure that your center of gravity as you're going up the ladder, you want your center of gravity, oops, wrong one, this is what I want. You want that center of gravity as you're going up that ladder, pushing down, but you don't want the situation where the ladder is so steep that you could, if your ladder is too steep, you could fall back this way. If the bottom legs are out too far, this downward vector could cause these legs to slip out, and then you're going tumbling down. So the 1-to-4 rule is what you want for the angle of your ladder. The other thing, and I'll stay on this chart while I'm here, is the top two runs of pretty much any ladder that you're using, right? Don't stand on them, okay? That's especially important if you're on an A-frame ladder. Man, I've seen people in videos that are standing on this top tray. It's just like, it's an accident waiting to happen. And people put up these videos, these fail videos of people falling off of the ladders and things. And man, it's so easy to get hurt really bad in those situations. So you don't want to be up on these top couple rungs. And modern ladders, the new ladders that you're going to get, they'll have imprinted in some way on these top steps, no step, don't step, whatever, just to bring that to your attention. The other thing you want to make sure you do is keep your area clear, so you don't have things that could fall on your ladder and knock it over, so that when you're going up and down the ladder, you're not stepping on things that could cause you to lose your balance, twist an ankle, have a slip and fall. And when you're going up and down the ladder, you want to have 3 points of contact, so either 2 feet in one hand or both hands and 1 foot. It's funny, that's a same rule that we used when we were spelunking. When I was spelunking as a younger person, 3 points of contact at all times on the ladder. And if you have to carry something up like tools, lights, those kind of things, try to do it in such a way that you don't have to carry it up in your hands, right? A tool belt is fantastic. Otherwise, have a line attached to a bucket or a container. And then once you get to the top of the ladder where you're going to be working, pull that material up. And so you have it up at the height that you're going to be using it. If you have one hand that's full of tools and you're trying to climb and you're using your elbow for, balance, say, look, we've all been there. I'm not casting, asparagus at anybody. But it's risky, especially if you're going up high, like when you're putting Christmas decorations on the second story of your house. So let's see. And of course, watch out for power lines. If you have a power line, an elevated power line coming into your house, be careful around there. All right. Just watch out for that. Because that can be bad if you hit a power line with your ladder. Also, avoid, when you're on the ladder, avoid shifting the center of your body out from the center. If you're reaching way out, your center of gravity is no longer on the ladder itself. The ladder can tip, you can slip. As annoying as it is, and I know this, I get it, I understand it. Don't lean way out to connect that light. Just accept the fact that you're going to have to move the ladder a little bit more. Man, I used to hate that when I was cleaning gutters. Getting up there and having to clean the gutters, and you're constantly moving the ladder to clean the gutters. What a pain. Let's see. There's a few other kind of things like don't use the ladder horizontally as a bridge unless it's designed to be used as a bridge, right? There are some ladders where you can do that. I've got this one ladder. It's really cool. It can be an extension ladder. It comes in 4 sections, and they're all hinged, and they have lock hinges. So I can turn it into a little scaffolding if I need to. I can turn it into an A-frame. I can use it as a straight ladder. It's a really cool ladder. It's designed to do that. But your standard like single straight ladder, that's not designed to be used as a bridge. So yeah, don't do that unless it's designed. Don't tie ladders together to try to get more height. Like so two. Don't try to tie together two 8 foot single ladders in order to get, say, 10 or 12 feet out of it. Right? You're never going to connect them as securely as necessary to prevent them from falling. Now, okay, I know that a lot of you are welders and, you're going to say, what do you mean I could weld that thing together and it's going to be like one piece of metal? I'm not talking about you all. I'm saying, and it's still not a great idea, but talking about the average person who's going to, try to use duct tape and baling wire to put together a couple of ladders. And then, of course, don't move a ladder while somebody is on it, whether it's your paint can at the top of the ladder or you or, your friend or whatever. If there's something on the ladder and you move that ladder, chances are whatever's up there is going to fall. And that's a real mess if whatever's up there is a can of paint. So you don't want to be doing that. And of course, don't exceed the loading, the weight loading. And when you're factoring in your weight, think about what you're carrying up on the ladder. So it's not just your body weight, but it's your body weight plus, 10, 20, 30 pounds of whatever you're carrying up there. So it's a lot to think about with ladders. You know, I see these videos all the time with people falling off of ladders, and there's no reason for that to happen. But a lot of people, they push the envelope with ladders and they end up getting hurt. And you can get hurt really bad, even falling from a short distance. You can break a leg, break an arm, give yourself a concussion, knock yourself unconscious. I mean, there's so many bad things that can happen with a ladder fall. So yeah, just be safe with those things. All righty then. Let's see what kind of comments came up about ladders. I just got to imagine that some of you have had some real issues with ladders. So let's see. Oh, let's see. No, Richard, I'm not sending you my ring. Not happening, bud. Anyways, Mike is in the house. Mike, great to have you here, man. You ever notice that Richard, during the course of a live stream, will always have at least one comment about not doing something drunk? But Richard, I agree. Do not go up and down your ladders drunk. Okay, that's just a bad thing to do. You know, if hey, look, I used to love to drink too, and it's I would never go up a ladder after I had a martini. It was it was like one of my basic safety rules. After the first martini, I pretty much didn't do anything except watch YouTube, and even that could be dangerous because I would sometimes leave comments that would get me in trouble. Let's see. And Enchanted Forest Jim, welcome. Great to have you here. I have to use 16-foot double-sided A-frame ladders at my job site. Sometimes those things are a beast. Oh, I bet you they are. 16 feet. Are they fiberglass? Because wow, those would be seriously heavy if those were fiberglass. Um, yeah, that would be a beast. I know my 8 foot fiberglass ladder is a beast. So I can't imagine a 6 foot. Oh man! And of course, I didn't talk about it, but it's the other thing is think about when you're carrying that ladder, you are going to run into stuff. How many times have you put that ladder over your shoulder and then you've got 4 feet in front of you, 4 feet behind you. You go to take a turn and you're knocking stuff off of the wall and things like that. So, and of course, there's all kinds of comedy skits about people getting whacked with ladders as folks are turning around. So, yeah, when you're carrying that ladder, especially a long one, you got to really be paying attention to that. Roger's talking about when he was when he had his construction company, and he had a 40-foot extension ladder. Holy cow! Holy cow! 40 feet. Oh man, Roger, I tell you what, that one. I mean, I have an extension ladder, for getting up to the second floor, and I get nervous when I'm going up on that thing. I can't imagine a 40-foot extension ladder. Ooh, yeah. Let's see. La, 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 la. Richard says, my last ladder adventure was trimming branches on a 12-foot ladder. The limb hit the right brace, the ladder collapsed, he hit the ground, the ladder pretty hard. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been, I see these videos, they're chainsaw safety videos, and chainsaw fails. And so you see these people up on the ladders with the chainsaw. They cut the limb, it comes down, it swings around, it hits the ladder. Now you got the person falling, you got the chainsaw falling. It's like, man. Yeah, I mean, when I'm out using my chainsaw, it is safety to the max. I mean, my niece was helping me, uh, and her boyfriend. They were helping me clear the yard after Helene went through. And I tell you what, they said, "Man, Unc, we thought we were back. We thought we had joined the Navy." The safety briefing beforehand, checking the safety equipment. I had them in hard hats and hearing protection and masks and the gloves and heavy clothing. Yeah, it was a lot of chainsaws are another dangerous but necessary tool. Now you combine a chainsaw and a ladder, or a trimmer and a ladder, and yeah, that's a good one. Yep, 3 points of contact. Yeah, it does make it a little bit difficult when you're using a chainsaw. But I have noticed a lot of the professionals, what they'll be doing is when they're up. Now, of course, they'll be on a line usually. They're climbing, or they're on a cherry picker, so that's a very different situation. But a lot of times they'll just use a smaller chainsaw so they can have one hand for the chainsaw. Um, but yeah, it's a 3 points all the time. By the way, freaking awesome. Welcome. Great to have you here. Uh, I sneeze at three as four is more. Yeah. Um, 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 uh, yep. Mike's got that same ladder I was talking about. Cool. That's a cool ladder, isn't it? I got it mostly because I got it when we were living in just outside of Memphis, Tennessee, and the house that we had these really tall ceilings, and I had to repaint the entire house. So I used the scaffold part of it when in the scaffolding configuration a lot for painting the house. But when I put it together as a straight ladder, I could get up to the high ends of the house too. So it was a really good ladder. I still have it. I still have it. I just don't use it nearly as much as I used to. Why? Because now I tend to pay people to do things that would otherwise have done myself in my younger days. Yeah, never leave tools on the top of your ladder. You know it. It's coming down on your head, isn't it? Well, you're not sorry. I don't mean to bring up bad memories, but I think most of us have have had some safety run-ins throughout our lives, and if we're lucky, we survive with all of our digits and limbs in place, but probably some scars to show for it. And as we used to say in the Navy, every safety requirement was written in blood. And so every time we had a safety requirement in the Navy, that we know that somebody paid a price for that at some point in the past. But sorry for the bad memories, man. Let's see. Hello. Let's see. Marlene Martins. Welcome. I guess for me it's bonjour, but welcome. Great to have you here. Now, here is the safest scrapper in the world. I mean, this guy's got us all beat when it comes to safety. The man in the shed. Oh, wait a minute. Ha, who am I talking about? It's because of the man in the shed that most of us don't have to pay the scrap gods because he's usually the one who's paying the scrap gods for us. Oh, man. Freaking Awesome saying nothing like taking Dad's old solid steel cased Black and Decker circulars up the aluminum ladder that, oh my God. Is that the voice of experience there, Freaking Awesome? Was that, because that does sound rather shocking. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Oh, Portuguese. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to throw the French at the Portuguese. My bad. Let's see. Ed Weber has joined us. Ed, great to have you with us, man. Solars is with us. Everyday Solars, welcome. Great to have you with us. I'm looking for more ladder comments. A lot of folks saying hi to folks that have joined us. Don't see any more ladders. Oh, here we are. Let's see. Enchanted Forest Jim says the 16-foot A-frames are fiberglass. They actually have a solid aluminum brace that you bolt onto each side. In addition to the normal folding braces, you got to lay it down on a dolly to move it around. Holy cow. Man, that's a serious ladder. No kidding. That is one serious ladder. But I bet you it's good and solid too. I bet you feel, once you get it up in place, you probably feel pretty safe up there. As safe as you can on a ladder anyway. All righty. Well, those were some good comments on ladders. A lot of good discussion there on the ladders. So everybody, please be safe this year as you're putting up the ladders and you're doing your ladder thing, because I'd hate to see anybody get hurt. Taking advantage of the season. Hey, and by the way, while you're up on your ladder this year doing your holiday decorations, why don't you go ahead and change the batteries on your smoke detectors? You're already climbing up and down ladders. You already got the ladder out. So go ahead and get those smoke detector batteries changed out while you're there. Yeah, I know. That was bad. All right. Well, let's get into copper. It is our industrial metal discussion for today. And I read some really interesting things about copper this week. So the first thing we want to talk about here on the Trading Economics website, copper futures held above $5 a pound, hovering near 2-week highs as the demand outlook improved after President Trump signed a short-term funding bill that ended the longest U.S. government shutdown in history. However, markets scaled back bets on a Federal Reserve rate cut. Yeah, the same as they talked about with gold. All right, so there's the Fed discussion is impacting copper as well. But there's a couple of things here that I want to bring to your attention. Now, the first one is that the Trump administration expanded its list of critical minerals that they consider critical for U.S. economy and national security to include copper. Now, you may know that in that they were doing what's called a 232 study of copper. The results of that were tariffs on processed copper goods, so goods that had copper in them, but they did not put a tariff on refined copper. However, I've learned that that is going to be revisited in 2026. So that is so we're back into this game of there people are staging copper in the United States in anticipation of a possible 2026 tariff on refined copper. And so that throws the global balance of copper out of whack as copper gets shifted to the US to try to front load in anticipation of that. And that can cause shortages in some places and not other places. So it makes it really kind of contorts what's going on in the copper market. Um, so the other big thing that I learned or that I was reading about with copper was that there's a lot of folks who have said, well, with this current U.S. administration scaling back on all these green initiatives, so we don't need all the copper that was going to go into windmills and connecting solar farms to the grid and those sorts of things. But compounding that is the growth of AI data centers. And I was amazed by this. I mean, I knew that data centers in general, but especially AI data centers, consumed a lot of electricity. Um, you've probably read stories of countries like China cracking down on Bitcoin miners that are stealing electricity from the grid. I mean, because these kind of things can chew up a lot of electricity, and so these AI data centers they need a lot of electricity. In 2024, AI data centers consumed 4.4% of the U.S. energy production. That already sounds like a big chunk, right? But that is forecasted to go up by 2028 to somewhere between 6 and 12% of US production. Think about that. AI data centers that are growing at breakneck pace, they're going to consume between 6 and 12% of the US energy production. So, what does that mean? That means we got to be running a lot of copper. That means the demand for, and this is just in the United States. All right, so that means the demand for copper is going to continue. Add to that the discussion of shortages in raw copper mining being produced. And they're talking about the potential for 30% shortages by 2035. So those kind of things make people nervous when it comes to copper. So I suspect that $5 copper, we're gonna remain above that overall for the long haul, and we're going to see it even more as we move forward. Well, let's look here at here's the 1 year chart for copper, and we saw a lot of these gyrations that we've talked about. Here was the original tariff announcement that crashed it, and it's been slowly coming back up. In this part of the chart right here, even though there's a lot of up and down, if you look at let's try using a line that's a little bit smaller than that. What you see is that it's kind of bouncing around this level as both the investors and the businesses that require copper try to figure out what's going on here. Now, if we look at the long-term trend, let's go to forecast. And, we see that the forecast for copper is going up here. And the trading economics folks are suggesting that in the 12 months, in the time month period here, we're going to go 5.68 over this 12-month period. So we're going to be, over 5.5. And we had gotten there, we had this spike that we saw here. So we're going to get back up to that level at least. I wouldn't be at all surprised if we went even further. I this this line is, I don't know. I can't. I Is that a 45-degree line? Is it more than a 45-degree line? This is really good news for us in the scrap world, right? Because we can get a lot of money for our copper, but it opens up a lot of things that we have to be careful of with copper. Uh, when with copper prices like this and the forecasts like this, you have a lot of motivation for thieves. And so we've already had a lot of these kind of stories where thieves are stealing the wires out of streetlights and cabling and going into empty homes and stealing the copper. And so you've got this issue of thievery, which then as governments try to figure out, well, how do we control that? Well, we're going to put laws in place in order to restrict the sale of copper. And all that does, I don't want to say all that does, but what that does is it makes it more challenging for those of us who are just law abiding scrappers who are just trying to figure out how do we do our business, right? What are the laws associated with our business? And, we're not stealing stuff. We're just, we're getting it legitimately and we want to sell it legitimately. And then there's all these rules get layered in. So it does get a little bit, challenging for us sometimes. And so, the what you might want to do as a scrapper is pay attention to your what's going on with your city or your county, and if there are laws that are being proposed to restrict copper sale or require greater identification or controls, then weigh in on that. All right, talk to your elected officials, go to your town hall meetings, and make sure they understand that, hey, there's a lot of legitimate scrappers out there that aren't breaking the rules. So, let's not make it so hard for the legitimate scrappers in the scrap yards while we're trying to protect against thievery. It's a challenge, it really is. And I don't envy those elected officials who are trying to figure out how to deal with both sides of this challenge. There are already laws in place about burnt copper wire because from an environmental perspective, they don't want people burning the insulation off of copper wire in order to try to sell it as something other than insulated copper wire. And so a lot of scrap yards either won't buy it or you have to prove it's yours or, there's a lot of nuances to selling burnt copper wire. And then I suspect we're going to see more and more regulation show up as the value of copper continues to go up. Now, what do we do as scrappers? Well, I go back to my standard philosophy. Sell your lower grade insulated copper wire, your number 3 copper, in order to get your cash flow requirements. Keep 10 to 20% of your good copper, your number 1 copper, your bare bright, behind to take advantage of those future prices if you can afford to do that. Now, those of you that have been watching my live streams for a while, you'll know that when I first started recommending this, I was saying 10%, just keep 10% behind. But as I see what's going on in the copper market, as I see the potential for the copper market, I'm now saying 10 to 20% if you can afford to keep that much behind. Because this line, this growth line here, just really suggests that it might be worth keeping more than 10% behind. Now, of course, there are other ways that you can deal with your copper. You can melt it into ingots and sell those ingots to artists that need copper and usually make more money than you'll get from your scrapyard. That's a good way to do it. You got to be a little careful with that because some artists and some people that use copper, they want to know specifically where the copper came from because that's important for the work that they're going to do. So, they don't want, they want to, that's why a lot of times they'll buy the number 1 copper in its pipe form because they know it's number 1 copper from pipe or bare bright wire. And, they know what that copper is, as opposed to an ingot, which could be a mix of all different kinds of grades and impurities and stuff in the copper. So, those kind of things are where you're going to what you're going to see go on with copper. Of course, it's a little bit more difficult to keep copper behind in its in the form that you usually find it because it's a bit bulkier. But your Bear Bright can be wound up and smashed down tight. Your number one copper you can usually smash that down. Now it's not always the case with, say, the copper heat sinks. Those can be pretty, those are good. I mean, I'm hanging on to all the copper heat sinks, but it's really hard to smash those down, right? It's not like copper tubing that you can smash down. So keeping your copper reserve, you got to think about the space that it's going to take. I'm going to leave this up here and go see what kind of comments we have on copper. Got to do that first. So, Bob joined us. Skills, welcome. And JR Cat has joined us. Welcome. Great to have you all here. Good to see y'all. So let's see what's going on with copper. Anybody got any copper comments? Folks saying hi to Bob and Solers and JR Cat. And so let's see. Richard said, told his yard this weekend that he was waiting on copper to hit 7. They said it won't happen. I said, I'm betting it will and stop. Yeah, I mean, go ahead and hold it for 7. It's going to take a little while to get to 7, but I would agree with you. It's going to get there. It's just a question of, can you hold it that long? It's the other thing that, it's like, okay, so you told your yard that you're waiting for 7. I'm sure that, they're like, okay, fine. We got plenty of other people selling this copper. So, Roger is saying, I think it will happen too. Eventually, I'm predicting in 2028, but then it will depend on which direction the 28 election goes. I don't know. There's so much that can play into that. The thing is that regardless of how the U.S. elections play out, the world is using more and more data centers, more and more AI data centers. And even though the U.S. is backing off on green investments right now, the rest of the world is not. And so copper is just going to be in greater and greater demand. So I don't really put a whole lot of stock in what the future elections could do to the price of copper. I mean, there's certainly some influence there, but there's just so much demand for copper in our modern society that whatever happens in future elections, I don't think it's going to be a huge decider one way or the other. JR Cat says that soon they'll require urinalysis. I don't know, maybe a DNA sample. Oh man. And let's see. Yeah, again, folks saying hi. All right, so good, good comments and discussion about copper. Keep some of that copper behind if you can, because I think you'll be pleased with yourself if you do keep some behind. Now, the other thing that I'd like to do real quick before we head over to Ireland is let's go see what our girl is up to. So we're over on the Shark Research Foundation website. Again, this is Dr. Neil Hammerschlag. He's the shark scientist that we're sponsoring. He created the Shark Research Foundation after leaving the University of Miami because he just could not take the bureaucracy of the big university system anymore, and he just wanted to focus on sharks. So now he's got this institute. This is a 501(c) nonprofit. And he's doing some really cool research. He's tagging sharks, and we sponsored one of the sharks. His methodology for tagging the sharks is different than the way a lot of other people do it. So he doesn't haul the shark up on a platform. They tag the shark while it's still swimming, so it's a lot less intrusive to the shark. Anyway, here is our shark. Here's Salvager. And, she was originally tagged here. She swam around here for a while. Then she headed up here for a while. Then she ran across the island here. So land shark time. Now, anyway, so she swam out in off the shelf into the deep ocean, which was interesting. Who knows what went on there? But now she's over here, and now this tag is blocking it. But I'm going to zoom in, and what you can see when I zoom in, oops, she is now off Cape Cod. So I used to live on Cape Cod when I retired from the Navy. I lived over here on Cape Cod, and I worked for a company that was over here on Cape Cod. We were doing underwater robotics. Anyway, Cape Cod, when protection was placed on the seal population, the seal started to rebound off of Cape Cod, and there were a lot more seals. And I remember having a discussion with a bunch of researchers at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, which is, I believe they're here. We were having a discussion, and we were talking about, it's only a matter of time before a great white takes a human, because the seal population has exploded. We were expecting the sharks were going to come back. That year, there were, there were shark sightings. That was 2007, 2008. They started to see more great whites, and sure enough, there was a shark attack. And now it's gotten to the point where Cape Cod has become a great white shark tourist destination. So people can charter boats to go out and look at the great whites, and you can see them from the beach a lot too. But the government has started training lifeguards and putting watches out, and they have a system for alerting people to the presence of a great white before they go swimming. And they're starting to pay attention to the great whites, or have been actually for a while. So anyway, Salvador is here probably looking for the seals. I would not be at all surprised if we saw her hang out here for a while, if we get multiple hits here, as she, has Thanksgiving dinner on the seals or with the seals, or anyway. I don't know. I it's hard to say what the sharks will do, but it makes sense that Salvager is over here, because there's a huge seal population along the Cape, and great whites, they tend to enjoy seals once they get to be her size. She has graduated from eating fish to eating marine mammals, and so I suspect I won't be at all surprised if we see her around there much more. And yes, this is where Jaws was filmed. Which one? I don't remember which one of the islands Jaws was filmed on here, but yeah, that's where Jaws was filmed. So, how apropos is that? All right. Well, it is now time to head across to Ireland. So we are going to do a quick swim across the Atlantic, across the pond, and join our friends Scrapping Irish. If you have autoplay enabled, then you will be automatically redirected to Ireland when I end this stream. If you do not have autoplay enabled, then please go onto YouTube, type in Scrapping Irish in the search bar. You'll see the alert come up for his live stream. Who knows what's going to happen, because it's a Q&A driven hour discussion. And so we never know which way it's going to go, because it all depends on the questions that pop up. So I look forward to seeing you all over in Ireland. If I don't see you over in Ireland, please have a wonderful and safe week, and be careful when you're up on those ladders.